Okay, well, let's call the meeting to order. Welcome to the August meeting of the Town of Newbury Human Resources Board. Present are
Diane Doyle.
Mark Fleckman.
John Ferrara.
Anthony Antico.
Lynn Peabody.
Thank you all. Good to see everybody. And joining us in the audience today is Selectwoman Leslie Matthews. Nice to see you. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for welcoming me.
First order of business is to approve the prior meeting's minutes. Diane, thank you in advance for passing those along. Has everyone had an opportunity to read through the minutes?
Yes.
Yes.
Is there a motion to accept?
I'll make the motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Changes, edits, anything people need to add? Seeing none, all in favor of accepting the minutes as written, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Do you have the agenda? Do we have an extra one?
Would you like one?
If you have one,
I can get you a copy.
Thank you.
Or Leslie can just
Here.
go along with mine and we can share.
All right, why don't you go with that, and then I can put it on the back of this.
I have an extra one right here. I printed off
Oh,
two.
okay. Oh, perfect.
Here you go, Leslie.
Great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Just being polite to our guests.
Should have found that last month when Phil Denayer was with us.
I know, right?
Yeah, that's right, you mentioned you're pointing him out this morning.
Oh, did it? Okay, good. Next issue, employee issues. Nothing has crossed my email or phone or desk. Let me turn to Diane. Are you aware of anything?
I am not aware of anything that's been brought to my attention. I did check with Patty as well, and she was in earlier, and we do not have any employees.
Okay, I should have mentioned earlier that Chief Fisher is not with us this evening. She has an excused absence for the meeting, and we have a quorum. So no employee issues to speak about. That's great. Personnel actions and job vacancies. Diane, I'll turn to you. I know we've had some movement and some recent new hires as well as others that maybe we might be getting close on.
Okay, so,
Fire chief?
So the fire chief position is underway. I'm sure you read the newspaper today that we have a search firm that's actively engaged in soliciting resumes at this point, so nothing new to report there. We have hired a new IT director. He will be starting on September 5th.
A week from tomorrow?
A week from tomorrow. I've met with him and started his onboarding process. He comes from not municipal but with extensive IT experience, and so he will be joining us the day
Great.
after Labor Day.
Great. And what is that
Great.
gentleman's name?
His name is Jonathan Temple.
Temple? Jonathan? Goes by Jonathan?
I believe so, yes.
Good deal.
So he starts on the 5th.
Great.
What was the experience, industrial experience that he had, or academic experience?
I don't have his resume in front of me, so I don't want to misspeak.
Nope, no problem.
Private industry. He was interviewed by not only the town administrator, but we have an IT consultant that also was part of the search firm. We had a couple of different resumes.
Good.
Quick question about that, Diane.
Yep.
So I see on our classification schedule that we have an IT/communications manager, and this is a director that was just hired?
I think I misspoke. It's IT manager.
Okay. Thank you.
Do you have the 2024?
I do.
I have the 2023.
Okay, I think I emailed out the 2024. So
Okay.
I'll go back and email it again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and any other movement in terms of new hires?
So very recently, it looks like we have located a town accountant / assistant finance director. So that was put out last Thursday, I believe, the offer letter. I will be meeting with her on September 12th. So I do not have any extensive information, but it looks like we have finalized our interview process and have located a town
Great.
accountant.
You referred to a start date of September the 12th?
She is coming in on the 12th. I think her start date is the following Monday, the 18th.
And that's town accountant /
Assistant finance director.
great. These are some good positions.
She does come with extensive experience from, I believe it was Methuen.
From Methuen? Okay.
Yep.
Good.
Great, thank you.
that's all I have to report.
And I know that last month, Chief Fisher talked about ongoing recruiting for communications officers, I believe. I
Yes.
think there was at least one still available.
Yeah, I believe so, yeah.
Okay, you don't know what's happened there.
I haven't seen anything new.
Okay.
Nothing new to report there.
Great, so nothing else in terms of personnel actions or job vacancies?
Well, the only other one that's still open is the program manager for the Council on Aging. And I know that we've received a number of, that was vacated. I know we've received a number of applications for that position as well.
Okay.
How long has that been posted?
A
2 weeks.
couple of weeks.
Oh, that's,
Yeah.
okay. And you already have good applicants.
We have some good
Great.
applicants on that one.
Good.
Thank you, Diane. I'm not aware of anything that would fall into the category of workplace issues anywhere in town, ethics issues, discrimination issues.
Nope.
Once again, good to hear. Safety issues normally return to Chief Fisher here. Have you spoken with her about that? Or protocols, I think, remain in place for COVID?
They're still the same, but, obviously, Lynn, you might be able to speak to this too. I'm hearing that there's a resurgence of, of things, but nothing has changed as far as town hall's protocol.
For COVID and
Yeah.
masks?
Yeah, nothing yet has changed.
Nothing yet. It's certainly on the horizon though.
Yeah, there are murmurs out there. I saw that, I think it was in Kentucky, that they've already closed a couple school districts because of something that blew up there in a small town, but.
Yeah. Yeah, we're hearing little bits and pieces, but we do not have any kind of mandate for masking
Right.
at this point.
So the protocols remain in place, whatever they may have been.
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
If I could just interject on that
Please.
for you. My daughter works at a long-term care facility, and COVID is going crazy. So these people are coming in from municipal hospitals, and they've already been infected. So it is.
Local? She's local?
Wilmington,
Okay, yeah.
yeah, so.
It's definitely out there.
It's just something to keep a watch on.
And it's interesting, I've spent the last 2 years visiting Avita in Newburyport, having to don a mask before you go through the front door.
Mm-hmm.
I went there the other day to meet with the director, and somebody had referred to them a year ago, and mask edict is done. I came in and nobody else had one on, so I dispensed with it and sat there in the foyer and met with the gentleman that I was visiting and the director. But I suspect that you're right. They get one case, it'll go right back to square one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's rapidly on the rise. So everybody is gonna probably just have to accept what's happening and be diligent on taking care of themselves and the people that are around them. But that's all I have to say from the healthcare, the people in healthcare.
Well, I'm sure we have our Board of Health,
Mhm.
as well as, Chief Fisher on the protocol. I'm sure if something comes down, we'll be,
Immediately notified.
yeah,
All right.
exactly.
Thank you, Leslie.
You're welcome.
Other business, couple of agenda items. Let's start with what we started to discuss last month, which was a need that I think as a body, we believed, based on the conversation last month, that Newbury would be well served if we could identify where Newbury sits relative to its, if you will, its municipal competitors, locally especially, as it relates to compensation. This is not a code red. There's nobody banging on the door, but it's been a long time since we gave any real consideration to where Newbury sits relative to our neighbors as it relates to compensation. And I think we agreed last month that this would be a worthy subject for us to consider. We've scheduled a subcommittee meeting for October the 16th, I think it is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The reason we scheduled it a couple months out, if you recall, is that, as Diane will talk about more in a minute, this is the time of the year when folks from various communities enter their data into the MMA database, which then gives us access to really good quality information about where Newbury sits relative to towns in our surrounding area of similar size and type. The West Newburys, the Merrimacks, the Essexes, Groveland, Georgetown, Salisbury perhaps, towns of similar size, similar geography, similar type. And depending on the quality of the information that those towns enter into the MMA database, that will give us at least some sort of a roadmap to understand where we sit.
Mm-hmm.
We also have to factor in, as we talked about last month, how many hours do employees work in Newbury versus other towns? What do the benefit packages look like in Newbury versus other towns? Duties and responsibilities, it's not always an apples to apples comparison, even though the title may be the same. But I think we've agreed we've got at least a good starting point. And over the next 30 to 60 days, hopefully more and more towns will be entering the data that Diane has already entered into the system, because she likes to be prompt with her reporting. So Diane, let me turn it over to you and share some additional thoughts.
Yep, so Mark and I had a few minutes before the meeting I wanted to give him a look at, we've talked about the information, how it flows in, how it gets entered, how we can extrapolate things by, again, geographic location, by position, etc. So what we thought, and after looking at it, I think to kind of kick it off, right now we have 4 communities that have entered for fiscal '24. People start July 1st, the rates are set, people start entering their data, and it slowly comes in because everyone's busy, but we'll start to see more and more information get entered into the system. But I think what we thought we'd throw out is that in October, when we met, we would pick a couple of positions. Maybe it's the 2 positions that we just filled, or maybe we select a couple of roles, department head roles, where we would come up with a presentation of those 2 particular roles, the data that's available and how it compares. So we could have sort of a working document to say, yes, this looks good, or no, we need this information, or we also thought that it might make sense, again, because certain positions work 40 hours in other communities and they work 35 here, or they work 32 in an even smaller town. We thought that what might make sense is to present the data in terms of an hourly rate, so that you're comparing apples to apples in terms of the hourly rate, as opposed to this person works 40 hours, this person works 32 hours. So we thought what we would do is in October, we'd pick a couple of positions, we'd come up with a format, we would extrapolate the data so it came down to an hourly rate. And then I think the other thing that we thought is that when it came to like the benefits piece, the cost of insurance, how much the contribution rate was, we kind of felt that that might be better presented as a completely different one-page kind of summary as it relates to those 6 or 8 towns that we're going to choose, because rather than factoring that in on the chart, it might make it a little bit cumbersome. We thought we could just really present that on an overall analysis. Is that pretty much what we talked about?
Yeah.
So the health insurance and the dental insurance and the benefits would be presented sort of on a different...
Town by town basis as
town
opposed
by
to
town.
positional basis.
Yeah.
Okay.
But that can also get complicated because some communities have 4 different plans, some have 2, some have a higher cost, some have a higher percentage that the employees, so it's gonna give us a lot more data just for the benefits piece, but put that out for thoughts. That's kind of what we thought we would have for our October meeting as a starting point.
Can I have a comment?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm envisioning in my head, that you have this on an Excel spreadsheet, right?
Yep.
And so then you have like the position, and you have your columns, you have your side columns, you know, pay whatever, and break it down per hour. I like that,
Yep,
because, you know, that's going to make it apples to apples.
right,
as
so
far
I would
as pay.
envision like the two, down the side would be the 2 roles, and across the top would be the 8 or 10 communities that we
Yep.
select.
Yep.
With, and then also with a comment off to the side, treasurer collector, you know, like for example, my position also handles human resources, doesn't handle human resources, or to try to give the caveat for, again, trying to add some sort of quality to the data as well. So we'd have a section for comments off to the side.
Right, and that's information that we're gonna have to dig for. You know, obviously, the MMA is not gonna have job descriptions
Sure.
for every one of these positions for every town. And so, what Diane and I were thinking about is that, you know, once we identified the 2 or 3 or 4 positions we'll use this for, then, you know, as a separate project, then perhaps we make some well-placed calls into these various towns and ask, you know, what information they'd be willing to share about, you know, does the treasurer in Groveland also handle HR responsibilities like Diane does? What is the breadth of the IT director's role here versus there? Does the DPW individual also have facilities, or is that a separate person? And as best as we can, try to compare those apples to apples as well. It's never gonna be a perfect exercise. There are gonna be some blips along the way, but at least we hope it will give us, in a broad sense, an idea as to whether we're in the ballpark.
Sure.
You know, are we significantly higher than the rest of the towns in the general area? Are we at the 50 percentile? Are we at the 30 percentile? And then the second step is, what, if anything, do you do about that?
So, and all great. So I'm thinking this in my head, right? So you have like the CEO and COO, just to name 2. And you have Newbury, Groveland, Andover. I don't even know if Andover's in that group. But then what about just putting down here some basics on the insurance, you know, whatever, so insurance information. And so that way, you know, and maybe any other benefits that would be part of the discussion, you know, work 4-day weeks, you know, and so that's all for Newbury right there, instead of, you know, having 2 different sheets where, you know, you're looking at this and then you have to go over here and you have to kind of call the information and pull it out. I don't know, what do you think of something like that?
Yeah, the only thing I would say is maybe do just what the split is, and maybe the cost, but you gotta keep in mind, there are some communities that have
Sure.
multiple plans.
Yep.
I just don't want the sheet to get too muddied.
Well, if we're
But
only
we can-
doing 2 positions.
Right.
And we're doing, how many, 8 town,
Probably
you know,
8
communities or something. I don't know, I think that for me, that it would be a little bit easier to read if I was just looking at Newbury all the way down.
Rather than having a separate presentation
Yeah.
for benefits.
Yeah,
Okay.
but what did it say about that, you know, and then flipping back and forth?
Okay, I mean, we can certainly start there, and then like we said, rather than create this, we wanna start small.
Yep,
It's like, okay, here's the data, here's the format that we can present it in, here are
Yep.
some of the pitfalls or the challenges with the data.
yep,
How do we make some assumptions and try to get as consistent as possible? And then expand it out to maybe the department head level.
sure.
And we might have 15 department head roles where we would then expand it to.
But
But
given that, you could just add side columns or side linear,
Mhm.
what are those, rows. And so then you put in another row, you
Right.
know, department head here,
Right.
library director, whatever.
Right.
And you still have the benefits information
Okay.
down still under Newbury.
Yeah, but the way that you're envisioning that is exactly what we talked about, was having the roles down the side, the towns across the top.
Yep.
Extrapolating it to an hourly rate,
Yep,
having a comment section for any discrepancies in the job description, and then also addressing the benefits.
yep,
Okay,
Is it reasonable to assume that the major differentiator in benefits is probably the cost that the individual bears for his or her insurance?
well, what about the type of plan that you're looking at? So, John, I think you were a benefits professional. for all of your career. So, you know, do you have the high deductible plan, do you have the PPO, do you know, whatever, right?
Right, so that's what I'm saying, you're
And the
not getting.
language,
you're not-
the disability, especially the language
Yeah.
and
That's why I'm wondering, do you know if there's a big differentiation from one community to the other in those areas?
If folks in different communities use Maya and get their insurance through the Massachusetts Insurance whatever the Maya designation is, it's escaping me. Then most times those plan summaries are certain deductible levels, but they can be different because you have the ability to go in and basically create whatever plan you want. Could you have?
So then you can put, you know, as you're defining it down here under, say, Newbury, and then you can put variable, you know, like C attached or something.
That's what I was wondering, are there 3 or 4 key items in a list of benefits that, you know, so that to Diane's point, we don't have to include everything?
Yeah, employer contributions
Maybe
would
we
be a
just
big
pick the
one.
HMO plan, because there's HMO plans, there's PPO plans, there's various plans. So maybe
Yeah.
we just pick the HMO plan, the percentage employee
Mhm.
versus town, the deductible and the cost.
You know, so I think that that would be a good place to start. As you're saying, you know, we start here, and then as this conversation gets going, you know, we can manage how much broader we wanna go versus, you know, I mean, we could make this as big as this table, right?
Right.
So I think that that's a great start.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
okay,
we'll start
great.
with that.
Thank you.
We'll
Good
start
input.
with just picking the HMO plan.
Yep.
One of the most important elements is job description. How is it MMA does not require the nuances that are so important to making an apples to apples? It's okay to go to the hourly rate, but if you look down through the boards and committees in this town, you see the same individuals' names, including your own, in 3 and 4 different spots. That's a nuanced description that if we don't know that about Groveland or
Right.
Hatfield, USA, we're missing a big component. Why wouldn't MMA require that nuanced description for comparison purposes?
I could explore it, and I
Yeah.
could make some phone calls and
I'm
see.
not even sure is there a spot in the MMA database for job descriptions? I mean, there may be generic job descriptions, but not town by town.
Well, it sounds to me, all we're gonna get is title of the person's job, not a real job
Well,
description.
actually, if you look at the one that you have an example of, which I don't really want to distribute because it's, but it does give, it gives at the top, MIS director, it gives what their overall description of work is.
Right.
But it's not, I don't believe, and I can confirm this, that there's an actual full job description.
And-
But with the title, it will tell you what generally, and that's put in by the individual communities, what, first of all, what the position is, and then what the description of the work is.
Right,
So there is some level, it's not to the full level of a full job description.
right. And as we talked about earlier, especially in smaller towns, many people wear multiple hats.
Lots of hats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that's, again, an X factor we'll have to, you know, another ingredient to put into the pot. But, and again, that's why we know it's not gonna be an exact science, but
Yep.
we can get closer than we are today, certainly.
Yeah.
Same question to ask in the last 18 months to 2 years. Have we lost anybody to competitive aspect reasons rather than just plain geography?
I can't answer
Okay.
that. I don't know, I mean, a lot of times I'm not gonna understand what someone's personal decision is to leave a job. They may go to another community, it may be a combination of, you know, if it's closer to home, they may make
Yeah.
a little, hours, I don't think I can generally speak to,
I can't either, but I think it's a reasonable assumption in any population, if you've got, you know, 10 people who've left the, you know, the municipality in the last year or so,
You
I
got a
think it's
problem.
reasonable to assume that,
You got a
that
problem.
some
Do we do
may
ex-
have left for money reasons.
Do we do
I don't know
ex-
the particulars of it, but it's,
do we do hard-boiled exit interviews?
that you would have to ask
Tracy,
the
it's a
town.
Tracy
Yeah, it's a
question.
Tracy
I would
question.
assume so.
Have
I
to
mean,
ask
I-
who?
Tracy, town
Okay.
administrator.
Yeah.
I meet with them purely from the perspective of working through the benefits, you know, end dates and final payroll and final vacation payouts and so forth, but I don't get involved in But Tracy, I do believe she meets with them, I
Yeah.
just think that's a question that you'd have to ask her.
I think, I can tell you that in my conversation with Tracy, when this subject matter came up a month or so ago, that she was very keen, for us to do some work in this, to better understand how Newbury sits relative to its neighbors, the neighboring municipalities. So I think it's reasonable to assume that at least some people have left for compensation reasons. Again, we're no different than any other enterprise,
We've also
municipal
had,
or otherwise.
we've also had some significant amounts of retirements,
Yeah.
which we haven't had in a long time because people have been in a role for an extended period of time. The town accountant, the fire chief, the police chief, just to name a few. So I think some of it, again, I wouldn't wanna say 40% or 20%, but
Yeah.
people have varying, go
I
ahead.
think the key word for me in that discussion is the idea of retention.
Yeah.
Maybe there are some people who, they had a bad couple of weeks in their home environment, or everything's all askew, et cetera, and so they just put themselves in a situation where I'm gonna leave this job, it's blah, blah, blah. So if you have a retention program, then you're following that person along, because it's easier to retain someone than go out into the boonies and cull new people, it really is, so.
When employees leave, do they do a resignation letter? Do they generally,
I require one.
do you ever see the reasons why they're leaving in that resignation letter? No?
Typically, no one's gonna,
We see reasons all the time, and that's why I ask. I'm so sorry to be leaving, it's, we're moving, or, I have an opportunity to work with a different department, that interests me, whatever. But generally, when people do an email or a letter of resignation, they say why they're leaving, but you haven't been seeing it.
I mean, I can't honestly say that's a typical thing I see in a return. It's usually, I'm leaving, I wanna thank Newbury for the opportunities, my last day will be X. It's very rarely do they say, I'm leaving because I'm not making enough money and I'm going to the city of Reading or town of Reading. It's, after much consideration, I have decided to leave, to move.
Do these people have a moment to discuss why they're leaving with, I think, the people who are extremely important in this retention, recruitment business is their department head. They're the ones they supervise them, they know them, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So I mean, do you ask the department head to give you like a little summation on?
I think they're the first line of defense. I think that would be the first person that they'd go to say,
Okay.
I'm
Sure,
gonna be,
yeah.
I'm giving my notice, I'm leaving, and it would go to Tracy.
Well, I think you have to
town
do that,
administration,
but-
yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure that it's reasonably sure it's Tracy's policy, certainly relative to department heads. I'm sure that certainly signs that there's some sort of an exit interview and broader discussion of that. But look, again, there are going to be those circumstances where, in some cases, if somebody's leaving for compensation reasons, maybe there's something that can be done. In other cases, there won't be anything that can be done. If someone's going to a town, leaving a town of 6,500 people and going to a town of 24,000 people, and the same position title pays $15,000 to $20,000 more, there's just so much that a town of Newbury can do with its budget. But again, we're better having the information available to us to know what we're dealing with, to Tony's point, in advance, to make sure that we're where we should be or where we could be. But we have to recognize that even if we have, all the data in the world to back up, our budgetary supplement, that there's just so much you can do. So.
So does that all sound like a presentation that would make sense for the first meeting? I think that's where we
Yes.
sort of landed.
Right?
Okay.
It's an organic process, just come out with something and then we can
Yeah.
amend it as you see fit.
Right, and by that meeting, we should have
Yeah.
lots more data available,
Hopefully,
many more towns,
Hopefully.
yeah.
yeah.
And again, the other thing I should mention that Diane and I looked at is that, some towns entered data that just talks about the min and the max.
Yep,
Other towns just have current salary.
okay.
Some have all three
Yep.
lineups, so we're gonna do the best we can to.
Looking forward to the
Yeah.
discussion and the work.
Okay, good. Thank you all.
Diane's looking at me like, okay, you signed up.
Well, we're gonna start with a
We
small
gotta
sample.
start somewhere.
Yeah, no, I think it's great, yep.
Leslie, you have any thoughts on that you wanna share?
I am just soaking it all in.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, the other discussion point, it came to our attention over the past month that there may, and I emphasize may, there may be an inconsistency in our personnel policy as it relates to the definition of a family. I say may, I want to be careful with my choice of words here. And
As it relates to family members, who is
yeah,
considered?
Diana's pointing out, so what we did, we just took snapshots of 2 pages. The personnel policy, I think, is what, 60-odd pages long. And we identified that there are a couple places where there may or may not be a discrepancy in how a family is defined. This may have been done inadvertently. It may have been done specifically on the advice of counsel, or anything in between, we're not sure. But as an example, on page 24, K, the bereavement leave policy, starting in the second, do you have an extra copy of this that we could give to Leslie? If not,
Yeah, I guess,
wanna hang on?
well, I mean, sure.
Yeah. Just so you can follow along, I'm sure it's something that might be of interest to you.
Thank you so much.
So under bereavement leave, as you can see in quotations on page 24, immediate family shall consist of, and then you read through that list.
Try to read.
Spouse, domestic partner, parents, brother, sister, child, spouses, partners, father and mother, grandparents, grandchildren, sister or brother-in-law, and son and daughter-in-law. If you go to page 51, you, under the nepotism policy, third paragraph, family member, a municipal employee's family member is considered the following. And again, many of the same list, husband, wife, daughter, son, mother-in-law, father-in-law, so forth and so on. But it also includes stepmother, stepfather, stepsister, stepbrother, and then I think a few others that weren't included in the prior, aunts, uncles, niece, nephew, first cousin. So one is a more expansive list than the other, and that may be written purposefully for legal reasons, but it's just something that has come up that we thought we would throw open to see whether the board felt that it should rise to the level of further discussion, or I certainly don't have. Does anyone have maybe some clarity as to why that might be? Is it consistent with other things you've seen in the
Well,
past, or?
Can I also just raise, if you look at sick leave, under sick leave policy, which is on a completely different page, it says sick leave may be used for immediate family and does not go on to define
Yeah,
what an
define it,
immediate
yeah.
family member is. So is it people listed under the bereavement leave? Is it people listed under the nepotism policy?
Right.
We have had a couple of instances where people have had a death in their family of two I don't know what the word.
Sitting members.
Yeah, family members that weren't listed under bereavement but are listed under nepotism, and questioning why, for example, aunt, why isn't aunt listed under bereavement? And why is it listed under the importance of nepotism? So I just wanted to add that, but sick leave doesn't even define, so you can take sick leave for yourself or caring for an immediate family member. But if you're not defining what an immediate family member is, where is one supposed to take the definition from?
Mhm. So I think that it's interesting that bereavement leave is tighter than nepotism, and that kind of makes sense to me. And I'm glad it's like that versus the other way around.
Right.
right? Yeah,
Yeah, it makes sense in a sense that bereavement doesn't have the financial level that nepotism carries, in other words, favoritism. And so they expand the list, given nepotism's potential for misuse, misbehavior,
Right.
influence, all the above. So the fact that the list, as Lynn indicated, one tighter than the other makes sense.
yeah.
Sure.
Tony, you agree?
I agree.
Okay. Do you
Different
know
reasons.
Do you know if under the ethics description, in terms of the nepotism, do you know if anywhere there's a statute that specifically lists those individual family members?
Under nepotism? I'd have to research it.
Yeah.
But you would agree that
But it's a different category.
yeah,
You know, nepotism, you're trying to preserve the identity and you know, what do you call it? Whole matter of you know, the town, the group, whatever. And if you don't, then there are very serious, you know, civil and certainly maybe even criminal charges coming out of that, nepotism. You know,
Right.
you're selling a job to a
Yeah.
member of your family, or having undue influence, et cetera, et cetera. But you know, and we've got the ethics rules in the Commonwealth, quite well done and everything else. But violation of that is really. But bereavement, I mean, who's going to get upset if Auntie Sue is going to have the chance to visit with the family or something like that? I think two very different things, areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think intuitively, it does make sense that the nepotism policy is broader in scope in terms of the numbers of individuals that will be identified as family. Contrasting that, however, you've got a situation where, there are lots of blended families. There are lots of step families out there. And, if someone was raised by and lived with and is, however you choose to define it, closer to a step-parent, the question is there an opportunity to look at that and say that the bereavement policy may need to be expanded to include certain others? I think it's a fair question.
Yeah, the bereavement aspect, when you think of the numbers, just the sheer numbers, reaching down through nieces, nephews, and first cousins, those could be linear lists that are in the 10s and 20s and 30s.
Right.
I mean, if you get a family of 6 brothers, siblings, and that's a lot of cousins, and
Yeah.
so it could be simply is that one deals with restriction and the other one deals with finance, and bereavement is the finance element, and integrity and ethics is the nepotism aspect. I don't think there was a mistake made. I think it's a thoughtful decision.
okay.
I'm glad to see at the bottom of the paragraph on bereavement leave, that use of bereavement leave and accrued vacation time are subject to the approval of the department head.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a little bit of flexibility there.
Yeah.
To Mark's point about, blended families and extended families and everything. So a department head would have the flexibility to be able to approve.
Yeah, special circumstances.
Yeah.
Well, I would say that that's what that says, but if you make the decision to approve bereavement leave for a step-parent in one case,
Yep.
you're setting a precedent.
Sure.
So, I think you're never gonna capture a perfect list of people who are important to people when they lose someone.
Mm-hmm.
You could also have a friend or a friend's parent who, in some cases, may be a second parent. So I don't think you're going to come up with what you think is the complete list in terms of importance. I would say that, yes, it says that it's subject to department head approval, you know, use of accrued vacation time. You know, there are ways to still take the time that you need that may not be paid leave for 3 days to attend a service for someone, whether it's through the use of vacation time or it's, hey, department head, I need to leave to go to a funeral for my, you know, for so-and-so, an aunt. I don't have vacation time, or I don't wanna use my vacation time. Could I go and attend this service, but then could I make up the time? So there are ways to, I think, provide a personal approach to having people have the ability to do what they need to do. It's just that in the case of bereavement leave, the two situations that have come up in the 13 years that I've been here have been aunt and uncle not being included in this list, and a step-parent. Again, because oftentimes step-parents are involved in the person's life for an extended period of time. So do we want to make a decision to change that? Do we not? Do we want to stay with what we have? Do we also want to take that description of what an immediate family member is and apply it to sick leave?
Who was the perspicacious fellow or lady that spotted the two differences?
I'm not gonna, a couple of different people have brought it to my attention.
Interesting. I mean, that's some deep reading.
Well, as it relates to their own personal situation.
Okay, so
It has come up.
came out of a circumstance. So either,
An aunt has come up a couple of times, and we said, I'm sorry, you know.
well, aunts can be second mothers.
That's right, yeah.
So I guess it just opens up the question, and I wanted to take Mark's comments, but it opens up the question, do we want to change this? Do we want to take a look at it? Do we want to define a family member for sick leave with the same definition, or is that a different definition?
Yeah.
It just states immediate family.
Well, the idea being of the step class of individual mothers, fathers, sisters, and brothers, perhaps those four could go up to bereavement leave, just because of the element is that mothers and fathers expire, or mothers and fathers are separated, and step condition becomes part of existence.
I can support that.
Yeah?
So I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
Well, those four categories, brother, sister, mother, father, step condition would be, would I would think be an easy addition to bereavement leave.
Oh, the 4 steps, stepmother, stepfather,
The
stepbrother,
step
stepsister?
step
Okay, I see.
category.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of what I was thinking too, but I guess I would like to suggest that we reach out to town council and ask if these two definitions were written specifically to avoid
Yeah.
the, you know, the vagaries of what we're talking about now. I would hate to recreate the wheel here and then find out that, you know, a month from now, the town council recommends that we not do it.
I think
There
that's,
may be a reason why it was done exactly this way. So how about if we
I think that's a good
ask
idea.
that we follow this conversation up with a quick conversation, or reach out to town council, see if they can shed some light on it, and that may solve the problem.
Mhm.
You know, that may stop us in our tracks. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Makes about step one. Yep.
Okay, I will effort that.
Why did this come forward? Did somebody bring it up and ask to have it reviewed?
In the last couple of years, we have had people who have lost family members that fall under those categories that aren't included in the definition under bereavement. Aunt being a specific one, a couple of times.
Okay.
Was there discretion in the town, in spite of the fact that aunt or uncle was listed here?
Not listed.
Was not, or not listed?
Aunt and uncle are not listed.
Okay, yeah. So, I mean,
So the
did they
person,
have the discretion to say, well, you know, so everything has to be, every individual has to be in this?
well, I'm saying
Proceed.
when you approve, so in those cases, we did not approve, the person was able to attend the services and use vacation time.
Oh, right, yeah, but the town.
Because it's
okay,
not
yeah.
listed, setting a precedent, and it's come up a couple of times now to the point where we felt it was, we should bring it, I think you had a conversation with Tracy about it as
Yeah.
well, that it made sense to bring it forward, to have a discussion about why is it different, do we need to make a change, so.
Yeah, I mentioned to Tracy, there's something I would like to put on the agenda, and she absolutely agreed that it's something, it's worthy of discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, the issue has arisen.
Yeah,
couple of
Couple
times.
of people, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So my understanding is that you wanna bring it as a review by town council.
Right.
Okay.
Good discussion, thank you all.
Yep.
I'm not aware of any other new business that's on the agenda. Does anyone have other items they'd like to address?
I'm just gonna add one thing. I think when, it might make sense at the same time, I wanna make sure that anything that refers to, state statute as it relates to FMLA leave or any of the
Yep.
required leaves, that maybe we have a second look and just make sure that those are up to date in terms of the references.
Yeah, and when you mentioned what's the definition of immediate family, I was thinking that, I'm so sorry I didn't mention it, but I was thinking that that might be defined under mass paid family leave, under family and medical leave.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Okay.
Nothing else, Diane? Selectwoman Matthews, since you're here, anything you'd like to address to the HR board?
No, I enjoyed the conversation this evening, and I feel more knowledgeable.
Well, we appreciate you coming.
My position.
I mentioned to Bill DeMayo last month that, to the best of my knowledge and fading memory, that
As
last
we
month
all
was-
are experienced.
last month was the first time in forever that a member of the select board had come to this meeting, and we appreciate it. So I say once again, nice to have a select board member here. We appreciate your earnest interest in what we do,
Thank you.
and you're welcome anytime.
And I think it will serve both of us very well.
Yeah, good.
I have
Very
a
good.
comment on that.
Please.
So I met the select woman yesterday, Saturday. Saturday afternoon over at the soccer fields where there was a concert. I was out riding my bike and not anywhere prepared to meet anyone in my flip-flops and shorts and stuff, no helmet. And I went over there, and so we met and chatted about the work that she does and the work that we do, and so it was a nice conversation, so I was glad to see you here today.
Thank you.
Yes,
I
we appreciate
enjoyed
the
our
interest.
conversation very much.
Yes, thank
We
you.
appreciate your interest. With that said, our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, September the 25th. Is that a date that works for everyone?
Yes.
And thanks for the handouts, I really appreciate that very much.
4 p.m.?
Yep. September, the end of September, oh my gosh, right?
I believe.
I'm ready.
On the calendar?
I'm ready to fall.
Okay, seeing no other discussion, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second?
Second,
Any discussion? We are adjourned.
thank you.